There is an animal living near the top of the Rocky Mountains that can smell a dead elk buried under 20 feet of snow, dig down to it, and crack the frozen bones with jaws strong enough to shear through them. It weighs about the size of a medium dog. It will drive a grizzly bear off a kill, and almost nobody who visits these mountains ever sees one, because there may be only a few hundred of them in the entire lower 48 states. It is the Wolverine, and it is only one of the specialists living in the harshest layer of these mountains, because the Rocky Mountains are not one place. They are stacked worlds, one on top of another. At the bottom you have forest and meadow that feel almost gentle. Climb higher and the trees shrink, then thin, then stop entirely at a line where it becomes too cold and too windy for a tree to live at all, and above that line is the alpine, a treeless, frozen, oxygen-thin world that spends most of the year buried in snow, a place as hostile to life as almost anywhere on the continent. And things live up there anyway. Today we are counting down 14 things living in the Rocky Mountains that you never knew were up there. Ranked not by size or danger, but by how completely each one has solved a problem that should be unsolvable. And by the time we reach number 1, you will understand that everything on this list exists because of a single brutal force that shapes these mountains from the top down. If this is the kind of thing that keeps your mind turning after dark, subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds. And tell me one thing in the comments. What is the highest mountain you have ever stood on top of? I want to hear it. Now let us go up. Number 14, the boreal toad. We start with an animal that should not be able to live at this altitude at all. The boreal toad is the only toad found across much of the high Rockies, living in wet meadows and marshes well above 9,000 feet, in country that is frozen solid for much of the year. An amphibian, cold-blooded, with permeable skin, surviving in a place that is winter most of the time. It manages this by essentially shutting down. The toad spends the long alpine winter in burrows and under debris in a state close to frozen. Its whole system slowed almost to a stop, waiting out 8 months of cold for a brief summer window to breed. It is endangered now, hit hard by a fungal disease sweeping through the world's amphibians. The denial is that people do not expect to find a toad near the roof of the continent. Number 14 belongs to the amphibian that survives the alpine winter by nearly freezing solid. Number 13, the snowshoe hare. Now to an animal that has solved winter by changing its own body twice a year. The snowshoe hare lives in the forests and subalpine zones of the Rockies, and it does something remarkable on a schedule. As the days shorten in autumn, its brown summer coat molts out and grows back pure white, turning the animal invisible against the snow. In spring, it reverses, going brown again to match the bare ground, and its feet match its name. The hare's hind feet are enormous relative to its body, splaying out to spread its weight across the snow, so it can run on top of a surface that a predator sinks into. The denial is that people think of camouflage as a fixed thing an animal is born with, not something it grows and sheds with the seasons. Number 13 goes to the animal that rebuilds its own disguise twice a year. And there is a growing problem, because as snow arrives later, the hare sometimes turns white before the ground does, leaving it glowing against brown earth. Number 12, the white-tailed ptarmigan. Now to a bird that pulls the same trick and lives even higher. The white-tailed ptarmigan is the only bird that spends its entire life in the alpine tundra of the Rockies above the tree line all year through the full brutal winter. It does not migrate down. It stays in the worst of it, and it survives by disappearing. In summer, its feathers are mottled brown and gray to match the tundra rock. In winter, it turns completely white, matching the snow so perfectly that a person can walk within a few feet and never see it. It even grows feathers on its feet, its own built-in snowshoes, and it burrows into the snow to escape the wind. The denial is that a bird chooses to spend its entire life in the one place nothing should want to be. Number 12 belongs to the bird that stayed on the roof of the mountains all winter and simply vanished into it. Number 11, the American Pika. Now to the animal that may be the hardest worker in these mountains. The Pika is a small, round, tailless relative of the rabbit that lives in the talus, the fields of broken rock, high above the tree line, and unlike almost everything else up there, it does not hibernate. It stays awake through the entire alpine winter, active under the snow, which means it has to prepare. All summer, the Pika works itself frantically, cutting grasses and wildflowers and carrying them back to spread on rocks in the sun, drying them into hay, then storing the hay in its den to eat through the winter. A single Pika can gather a hay pile, weighing more than the animal will eat, working non-stop through the short warm season. The denial is that people see a cute little creature on a rock and have no idea it is running a desperate race against a winter that will kill it if it stops. Number 11 goes to the tiny animal haymaking against the clock. And the Pika is also one of the clearest alarm bells for a warming climate, because it cannot survive heat, and as the mountains warm, it is being pushed higher and higher until there is nowhere left to climb. Number 10, the yellow-bellied marmot. Now to the animal that solved the same winter the opposite way. Where the Pika stays awake and works, the yellow-bellied marmot, the fat, whistling ground squirrel of the high rocks, does the reverse. It eats enormously all summer, nearly doubling its body weight in fat, and then it commits to one of the longest hibernations of any mountain animal, sleeping for up to 8 months. During that sleep, its body nearly shuts off. Its heart rate falls dramatically, its body temperature drops close to the temperature of its burrow, and it burns through the fat it spent all summer building, emerging in spring gaunt and hungry. It is essentially gone from the world for 2/3 of the year. The denial is that people who see marmots sunning on rocks in July have no idea the same animal will be functionally dead to the world from September to May. Number 10 belongs to the animal that sleeps away 2/3 of its own life. Number 9, the mountain goat. Now to an animal that lives on terrain nothing else can use. The mountain goat is not actually a goat, but a relative of the antelopes, and it lives on the sheerest, highest, most vertical rock in the Rockies, ledges and cliff faces, where a fall means death and almost no predator can follow. That is the whole strategy. By living where nothing can reach it, the goat trades comfort for safety. Its hooves are the key, split into 2 toes that spread for grip, with hard outer shells and soft rubbery centers that mold to the rock like climbing shoes. It scales near vertical faces, crosses ledges inches wide, and raises its young on cliffs a human would need ropes to reach. The denial is that a heavy-hoofed animal chooses to live its entire life on terrain that would kill a trained climber. Number 9 goes to the animal that escaped its predators by moving to the vertical world. Number 8, the bighorn sheep. Now to the animal that shares that vertical world and settles its disputes with its skull. The bighorn sheep is the icon of the Rockies, the ram carrying massive curled horns that can weigh 30 pounds, as much as all the bones in the rest of its body combined. And in the mating season, rams use them the way everyone has seen, backing up and charging each other head-on at speeds around 20 miles an hour. The impact is thunderous, loud enough to hear across a valley, and it happens over and over. A ram's skull and horns are specially built to absorb collisions that would kill nearly any other animal, with a double-layered skull and a broad, bony core. The denial is scale and history. There were once thousands of bighorns here. Then hunting and disease brought in by domestic sheep nearly wiped them out, and the animals on the cliffs today are the recovered remnant. Number 8 belongs to the animal that headbutts at highway speed and survives it. Number 7, the Canada lynx. We are right at the halfway mark, and if you are still here, you clearly want to know what really lives up here. So hit subscribe if you have not yet, because from here, the animals get rarer and stranger. The Canada lynx is a wild cat, built entirely around one prey animal and one problem. It hunts the snowshoe hare, almost exclusively, and to catch a hare on deep snow it evolved paws so large and so densely furred that they work like snowshoes, letting the lynx run on top of powder that its prey is also floating on. Its populations rise and fall in lockstep with the hare, boom and crash together, predator chained to prey. It is one of the most secretive animals in the Rockies, favoring deep snowy conifer forest. Hunting at night, and it was nearly lost from the southern Rockies entirely before being reintroduced. Sightings are so rare that seeing one is considered a genuine stroke of luck by people who spend their lives in these mountains. The denial is that a snow-adapted wildcat is moving through the same forest skiers cross, unseen. Number 7 belongs to the ghost cat built for snow. Number 6, the pine marten. Now to a predator that hunts in a place most predators cannot reach: the trees in winter under the snow. The American pine marten is a slender, agile member of the weasel family, about the size of a small cat, that lives in the high conifer forests and stays active all winter long. Its trick is that it hunts in 3 dimensions. It races through the tree canopy after squirrels, and then, when the snow is deep, it dives beneath it, hunting in the hidden network of tunnels and air spaces that form under the snowpack around rocks and logs. A whole concealed world where mice and voles spend the winter thinking they are safe. The marten follows them down into it. The denial is that people picture the winter forest as empty and still, with no idea a hunter is moving through the trees above and the snow tunnels below at the same time. Number 6 goes to the predator that hunts the hidden world under the snow. Number 5, the grizzly bear. Now to the animal that is coming back and changing these mountains as it does. The grizzly bear was driven out of most of the Rockies, wiped from the southern and central range entirely, surviving only in the northern mountains, around and above Yellowstone. But its numbers there have grown, and grizzlies are pushing outward into country that has not held them in generations. A grizzly is a mountain in its own right, a large male passing 600 pounds, and it shapes everything around it, moving other predators off kills, digging entire hillsides for roots and ground squirrels, and dispersing the seeds of the plants it eats. It survives the alpine winter by doing what the marmot does at giant scale, eating ferociously through late summer and fall, then denning up and sleeping through the deep cold. The denial is that people think of the grizzly as a fixed feature of a few famous parks, when it is actually a population on the move, reclaiming one job: finding and eating anything dead in a frozen world where food is almost impossible to find. Its jaws and teeth can crush and eat frozen bone and meat that no other animal can process. It travels absurd distances across brutal terrain, a single Wolverine ranging over hundreds of square miles, and it will challenge animals many times its size, including bears, to claim a carcass. There may be only around 300 in the entire lower 48, scattered so thinly across the high country that most biologists who study them go years between sightings. The denial is that an animal this rare and this formidable exists here at all. Number 4 belongs to the 40-pound animal that fears nothing in these mountains. Number 3, the animals that are not supposed to be here. Now to a category rather than a single species, because the Rockies are quietly full of animals in the wrong place. Moose are a striking example. In many parts of the central Rockies, moose were not historically recorded at all, and the large 1,000-pound animals people now see wading the willow flats are relatively recent arrivals, expanding into the range. Meanwhile, grizzlies, wolves, and lynx are being restored or are recolonizing on their own, redrawing the map of the mountains decade by decade. The denial is the assumption that a landscape this wild is fixed and ancient and unchanging. It is not. The animals people photograph and assume have always been on a given peak are, in many cases, either recent colonizers or deliberate reintroductions, and the whole living composition of the Rockies is shifting under everyone's feet. Number 3 belongs to the quiet reshuffling of which giants live on which mountain. Number 2, the tree line. Before we reach number 1, understand the single most important feature of these mountains, one most people walk across without recognizing it. Somewhere on the way up every high peak in the Rockies, there is a line where the trees stop. Not thin out, stop. Below it, forest. Above it, nothing taller than your ankle. That line is the tree line, and it is one of the most abrupt biological boundaries on Earth. It marks the exact point where it becomes too cold, too windy, and too short a growing season for any tree to survive, and it divides the mountain into two completely different worlds. Everything below it lives in a place where survival is merely hard. Everything above it lives in a place where survival is nearly impossible. And every animal on the high end of this list, the Pika, the ptarmigan, the marmot, The goat, the Wolverine, is a specialist of that upper world. The denial is that people cross this line on a hiking trail in an afternoon without realizing they have stepped from one planet onto another. Number 2 belongs to the invisible line that splits the mountain in two. Number 1, the altitude itself. Stay with me, because this is the honest answer, and it is the force behind every single thing on this list. The Rocky Mountains are shaped from the top down by one thing, and it is not snow or cold or predators. It is elevation, and everything that comes with it. As you climb, the air thins and holds less oxygen, so every breath delivers less than it did below. The temperature falls, the wind rises with nothing to break it, the sun's radiation grows harsher, and the season in which anything can grow shrinks to a few short weeks. Every animal on this list is a solution to that stack of problems. The ptarmigan and the Pika stay and endure it. The marmot and the toad sleep through it. The goat and the sheep use the terrain it creates. The Wolverine and the Lynx exploit the snow it dumps. None of them are up there by accident. See scenery, a postcard of peaks and blue sky, and maybe an elk in a meadow. But the mountains are not scenery to the things that live in the high country. They are a gauntlet, a set of increasingly impossible conditions stacked toward the sky, and the animals at the top are the ones that passed a test almost nothing else could. The higher you look, the fewer things live there, and the more extraordinary each one has to be. We did not fail to see these animals because they hide. They are up above the line where we run out of breath and turn back, in a world that begins exactly where the trees give up. So the next time you look up at a high peak and think it looks empty and silent near the top, remember that it is not empty. It is filtered, and the few things living up there are the toughest animals on the continent, getting on with a life at the edge of what is possible. If this is the kind of thing that keeps your mind turning after dark, subscribe and stay with the channel. And tell me in the comments, which of these did you have no idea was up there?